The 2025 NFL draft is in the books, at least for the 49ers. Who did they pick on day 3, and what grade would we give them? We'll break it all down on today's Gold Standard podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to another Gold Standard podcast. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera alongside Steph Sanchez. The Niners draft in 2025 is in the books, Steph. We can exhale now because the day 3 picks included an offensive lineman.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of 49er fans, they were holding their breath for quite a long time for that one. So they got their wish, and we'll talk about Connor Colby as well as some of these other prospects as well.
Let's just throw them up on the screen. If you're watching the live stream, you can see every member of the class of 2025. No trades for the 49ers. They made all 11 picks, that was a little surprising for me. We all know this was an incredibly important class for this team, given the free agency moves and all of that stuff. We're going to focus mostly on the day 3 picks for this show. We'll have plenty of other draft recap throughout the week to come. So let's just start with the first pick of the day, Steph. CJ West, defensive tackle from Indiana. And the more I researched him, the more I liked him. Everything I found out was like, okay, check that box, check that box, check that box. Hey, this might be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, this one is very exciting. And for a lot of 49er fans, he was a favorite because he gets a lot of comps to DJ Jones, right? And that's kind of what you see with him. He's stout. He's on the shorter end. You know, he's thick. He's 6'1", 316 pounds, but he's explosive. He could work through those double teams. He's a very good run defender. Again, like keeping up with the theme of getting run defenders and improving their run defense. They absolutely address that in this draft. And so CJ West definitely will go along with that. And so my question, and I'm sure we'll get the answer from Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch when they speak with the media later today. My question is how they plan on using both CJ West and Alfred Collins, because they kind of play similar roles. I mean, CJ West lined up mostly at nose tackle, so right over the center. And you know, I kind of see Alfred Collins as being around there as well. But, you know, maybe they see Alfred as being more of a 3-tech guy. CJ West has played at the 3-tech too, but I think his best spot is over the center. So it'll be interesting to see how they do that. Maybe they see CJ West as more of a rotational guy for Alfred Collins. Not sure. So really curious. But in any case, this is a really good move for the 49ers. And I think it's a slam dunk.
I loved everything about CJ West, even down to his social media profile. Did you see his Instagram? In his bio on Instagram, it says, "I hate quarterbacks." Like, yes, we talked about the attitude and wanting to get a little attitude, a little swagger back to this defense. It seems like he has it. And if there was any doubt, just take a listen to CJ West in his first time meeting the media with the 49ers.
I'm multiple. I can do it everywhere. But, you know, my bread and butter is at the one technique. That's where I'll just abuse centers, punch them in the face, you know, be as violent as possible, just creating havoc down there in the middle.
Yep. Thanks, CJ. Awesome. Yes, you pass. Welcome aboard. He was the guy I know Dieter and Hutch were very high on. They had him mocked to the 49ers at one point, and it just goes along with they went into this draft saying teams are not going to be able to run the football on us anymore. And that's what their plan was. Clearly, they are not going to tolerate the just beatdown that they got on the ground at the end of the season last year.
Yeah, and it's a really good sign that, I mean, obviously they knew what their flaws were. They looked at revamping their defense with a lot of these players that they let go, and they addressed it right away in this draft. It almost seemed like Robert Saleh was making most of these picks early on in this draft. And it really wasn't until today that we started to see some Kyle Shanahan picks up in the mix. But I'm a fan of what Saleh was doing and the vision that he has for this defense. Like I said, instantly improved this defense.
Harold McAllister, thank you for the super chat, says, love the Saleh picks. I don't know about the Kyle picks. A couple other things I liked about CJ West. He wasn't just a one-year wonder. It's the 4th straight season that he had at least 7 tackles for loss and double-digit run stops. So he's a consistent performer. I like seeing that. He ran a 4.95 in the 40-yard dash at the combine, and his 10-yard split was the fastest of anyone 315 pounds or more. So he can move a little bit. I see why they were comping him to oh God, now I can't remember his name. The Niners' old defensive tackle, DJ
Jones.
I can't remember.
Yeah. That's his comp.
But yeah, I can totally see why people would say that. And I like the line in the Dane Brugler draft guide: plays with sticks of dynamite for hands. Okay, I don't really totally know what that means, but it sounds good.
Yeah, it does. And like I said, he's explosive. He could get through defenders. He's disruptive. The one thing he's going to be better at right off the bat is going to be run defense. And he could stand to improve it in pass rush. But I think, that's something that'll probably come with time. But like I said, he's able to beat these centers. As he said, he wants to punch them, so, and he hates quarterbacks. So I think it's a good sign for him developing himself as a pass rusher in this scheme. I feel really good about this one.
When the Niners took Mykel Williams, we had Johnny Dell on, and he talked about how if everything goes according to plan, obviously we're assuming these guys are going to be able to play a little bit, that what the Niners are trying to do is essentially condense the defense, give running backs fewer rushing lanes, and let the linebackers go get the ball carrier. And if you've got Alfred Collins and you've got CJ West in the middle, and you've got Mykel Williams coming off the edge, hopefully they can do exactly that, because it used to be when the running back would get the ball, they would make contact with the first 49ers defender, and that's where the run would stop. And it was the complete opposite last year. So I like that the two guys they got seemingly fit the bill as guys that will stop the run.
Well, I know we're also focused on, the day 3 picks, but let's not forget Mykel Williams and Alfred Collins have 34-inch plus arms. So both of those guys also, vetted by their run defense, are going to be very, very strong at being able to stop these running backs or plays, tackles for loss. And so they're going to be able to make these tackles that maybe we didn't see so much last year for this defense.
Last little CJ West nugget I want to throw in. Since the start of the 2021 season, only one player in the FBS had at least 50 quarterback pressures and at least 50 run stops. That player now plays for the San Francisco 49ers in CJ West. So check. Yes. Thank you, Robert Saleh. Thank you, John Lynch, whoever was responsible. But I think it's absolutely a flyer worth taking. Okay. Next up for the 49ers, finally, they decide to go offense, and they go wide receiver Jordan Watkins from Ole Miss.
Yeah, and Rob, I hadn't watched a lot of Jordan Watkins ahead of today, but I did know that he had a 30 visit with the 49ers, of course. And look, the one thing that jumps out when you watch him is he's fast. He ran a 4.37 40. He does well tracking the ball. He has a good feel for playing in zone. He'll probably be more of a slot receiver in the NFL. And so again, like if this is a Kyle pick, I got to ask Kyle, like what is the vision for Jordan Watkins? Because just a year ago, you drafted Jacob Cowing in the 4th round. Slightly similar skill sets. They're fast. They're slot receivers. And so we want to see more of Jacob Cowing. What's going to be the path for Jordan Watkins to getting on the field? Do they see him as more of a depth guy? Well, as a depth guy, I think there's some upside there. He led the SEC in receiving touchdowns last season. And I also saw this little nugget. Quarterbacks have a passer rating of 153.8 when targeting him, and that led all draft eligible receivers in this class. So he also has some upside as a punt return guy. He has some experience there. Not crazy stats, average 7.9 yards per return, but something he can do. You can never have too many of those guys, I think, especially, guys that have the speed to go along with it, like Watkins has.
I didn't think that they were going to go wide receiver with their first offensive pick. I did think they needed a wide receiver in the draft. He had 5 catches of 60-plus yards last year. That was the most in the FBS. He averaged 6.8 yards after the catch, which I liked too, because I didn't really enjoy last year when we were not getting the yak yardage that we are used to. I would like to see us get back to that a little bit more. And he still averaged 18.5 yards per catch. So he's got some explosiveness to his game. Apparently, he said in his first interview that the 49ers told him it would be hard for him to see the field as a rookie.
I could see that. But don't we all want to see Jacob Cowing first? So I'm okay with that. Yeah. I'm okay with that. I mean, they needed to bring in wide receivers. They ended up drafting 2, Rob. So I think that's kind of surprising, but they need depth there, and it's always good to get younger at the position. And again, like, these are guys with some upside that they brought in, which is exciting.
And as you just let me know in the chat, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch are discussing day 3 of the draft. So we'll bring you any updates as to any comments on any of these guys that we're talking about. But they finally met Kyle. They finally let Kyle make a pick, and it was Jordan Watkins, the wide receiver. Next up, this one was interesting too. Jordan James, the running back from Oregon. Jed likes to tweet out before the picks. He tweeted something about how, if a future Hall of Famer says you're okay, then you're okay in my book. And the Niners go running back, their second straight offensive selection.
Yeah, I think this is not one of those names that you were hearing a whole lot throughout this draft process. So, like, you don't see it as a sexy pick. But, in Dane Brugler's draft guide, he's RB7. Like, he is ranked higher than some of the running backs that were drafted before him, right? And he has experience in the zone scheme at Oregon. One thing that I saw in just some clips that I watched from him, he's very slippery. He works really well through contact. And another thing is that he's good in pass protection, which I think, makes him a good option for the 49ers right off the bat. That will help him see the field should anyone get hurt. Like, that'll provide him a pretty high floor for the team. And this is my favorite one, and I'm going to knock on wood, so I'm not jinxing the guy. But he had 0 career fumbles. That's important too, being able to protect the ball. Another running back, Jadon Blue, who, throughout this process has been seen as a really good fit for the 49ers. He's fast, all that. He had a bunch of fumbles, I think like 9 or something like that in his college career. And he went the pick right after Jordan James. So I'm actually glad the 49ers didn't end up going that route. I like Jordan James. I think there's something to that. Like, a lot of people say, like, he has the upside to be a starter if he ever gets that opportunity, which, I'm going to see what he does. But the one concern with me, Rob, is that, like, I don't see a lot of speed. And which, is fine. Some guys can have success in the NFL with not a lot of speed. He has a 4.64 RAS score. He's not very athletic. He's not going to make a lot of big plays. I think that's evident. I think he only had 1 play last season that went over 25 yards. And so he's not a big play threat. But like I said, he's nice. He's slippery. He has good contact balance. This is a fine pick. He's not going to be starting over Christian McCaffrey, right? So let's not be too worried about this one.
You said he's nice. I thought you were like, yeah, he's not fast, but he's a really nice guy. Right? He's got a lovely personality. No, actually, in the Dane Brugler draft guide, the last line of the summary is he has the talent to quickly ascend to the top of a team's running back depth chart and stay there. I think to me, like, it does not shock me that Frank Gore likes him, right? Because he's like Frank Gore in a lot of ways. Not a burner, not going to run away from a ton of people. But full disclosure, I have not watched a ton of him, but I did see some clips of him. And to me, his running style is similar to Frank Gore in that he gets every yard. He squeezes every ounce of yardage there is to get from a run out of it. He slides in between people, good balance, good things like that. So I did like seeing that from him. And I think this is more of a floor pick for Kyle Shanahan. I almost wonder if it's Steph, like, hey, the last, 2 out of the last 3 years, we've been down to like RB4, RB5 by the end of the year. And I almost wonder if Kyle was like, if it got down to it, I know this guy is going to hold on to the football, and I know he's going to protect our quarterback in pass protection. And so he's sort of like the break glass in case of emergency type player. And that's fine. Like, I'm cool with that. It seems like he has the skills to be that. And so it's like you said, like, what is the vision for these guys, and can they live up to that?
Especially if you're going to be a depth guy, I think having a high floor is big, right? And as JD mentioned, red zone, yes, that is an area where, he had a lot of success. And it's because like he is kind of good in those short yardage situations. The 49ers had a somewhat similar back in Jordan Mason, who's, a tough guy to bring down. And, here, Johnny's kind of saying he's the poor man's Scatterboo. So yeah, I think that's maybe the type of role that out of all the running backs that they have, it's a pretty deep group now. That was one skill set that after Jordan Mason left, like they kind of lost. So maybe they want to bring that back. And again, high floor is the name of the game for day 3 picks. And they got that with Jordan James.
I was so bummed when Scatterboo came off the board. I was like, damn you, Giants. I was really hoping. And like, I don't know anything. It's just I saw his highlights. He seemed really fun. I'm going to throw KP, actually. Kyle Posey tweeted out some clips of Jordan James against Ohio State. Nothing on the clips is always like, oh, my God, that's amazing. But it's just solid, man. It's just solid work. And I'll take that, especially what is he? I mean, RB 3, 4, like we're not talking about a guy that's going to have to come in and start right away. So I was totally fine with it, but I was bummed that the Giants took Scatterboo. But okay, he's going to be in New York now. Enjoy that, Giants fans. At least you have that. Next up on the list, Marques Sigle, a safety from Kansas State. And the thing I liked about this, Steph, is that recently the 49ers have been going I don't want to say unathletic, but let's just say slower footed safeties. That is not Marques Sigle. He ran a 4.37 40-yard dash. That was the fastest safety of anybody. And his 15.13 miles per hour at 5 yards during his 40 was the combine's fastest. So he can move.
Yeah, he's speedy. That's another thing that, Jordan James, we weren't talking about his speed there, but I think there were a couple of guys in this day 3 here that did have a lot of speed. Siegel's one of those guys, 4.37, as you mentioned. He's rangy. He plays pretty clean as well. He didn't have any coverage penalties in 2024. He also provides some special teams upside with that speed. I think that's his floor, right? Again, like guys who can do more, even like if you're going to be a depth guy, what else do you bring to the table? You have to bring something else. Special teams is that, and he's versatile. Like that's, I think, the big thing. He says he could play free safety, strong safety, nickel, and dime. He was a former corner, so you see that in his game. He has some ball skills to him. So yeah, I really like this pick at this point in the draft. I see the upside with Sigle. I really like this one.
And he was teammates with Trey Lance at NDSU for a time. So, there's that. He also said his dad's favorite team is the 49ers. So that's
right.
We did think safety was a spot where the Niners were going to have to go in this draft. I do like the versatility there. We think it's going to be Malik Mustafa. We don't know who the other safety is going to be. I mean, he's got a shot to play, right? Because there's a definite possibility. I don't know that much about him, but I do like that they went away from the let's draft a safety that runs a 4.67. I know that's not everything, but like, damn, it's nice to see some athletes in there.
Yeah. And, I think you said it, like, we don't know if he's going to start, but we wanted some competition for Jair Brown. And I think they got that with Sigle. And again, so this is good upside. I think he's going to be able to compete right away for that spot. And, I was on the fence whether they would target a safety in this draft, but it wasn't a bad idea either because I don't think you can depend on Jair Brown. And so him and Mustafa would be a great duo, I think, because Sigle has a different skill set. I think what Jair Brown brings is there's some overlap there with Mustafa. So I like Sigle bringing something different to the table.
Good pick, or at least I see the vision with the positional pick from the 49ers. Obviously, we don't know if any of these guys can play. Next up, we get to kind of an interesting pick, I thought, Steph. Quarterback, Kurtis Rourke, who to me is like if you were to draw up a Kyle Shanahan quarterback, you're going to see Kurtis Rourke there. Not too much mobility, but a guy that can drop back, can process, can get the ball out, and is not afraid to take a hit in the pocket. It's exactly what Kyle wants from his quarterback.
Yeah, and I'm actually like just keeping up with some tweets as we're talking here, and apparently John York or Jed, I don't know if that was a typo, said that Kurtis Rourke, who had an ACL injury, probably won't be cleared for practice until the start of training camp. So just keep an eye on that. That is kind of one knock on him. He has a extensive injury history, and so that'd be my concern with him. He's dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his career, so durability becomes a bit of a concern. But to your point, I haven't watched a whole lot of Kurtis Rourke, but just reading what he like the strengths of him, yes, you sense that he would be a perfect Kyle Shanahan quarterback that Kyle would like. And there's some things that like kind of remind me of what Jimmy Garoppolo did well, like quick release. He hangs in the pocket to make a throw. The one thing that I think Rourke is better at, he has a deep ball, like, and he throws passes in the breadbasket. Right. So he's always also a leader, 3-time captain at Ohio, which he played at before his final season at Indiana. He's got a big frame, 6'4", 220. But as I said, like injuries definitely are a concern. I know some people weren't happy about the 49ers taking a quarterback out this high. Now they got 4 on the depth chart. I don't think this is really – I'm not too upset about it. I think they always kind of look to bring in a quarterback, especially on day 3 of drafts. I don't think he's a threat to anybody. I'll just say that. Like, it's a whatever pick to me, Rob. Kurtis Rourke.
You're taking a quarterback every year. I'm fine with it. He's torn his right ACL twice since 2022. He played the entire season last year on the torn ACL. Like, the reason he's going to be out is because he didn't have the surgery. He played on it. So he's clearly tough as hell. If you're watching the stream, you can see this tweet from Jeff Deeney of PFF. Only 3 quarterbacks had a higher PFF passing grade than Kurtis Rourke: Jackson Dart, Cam Ward, and Shedeur Sanders. That's not bad company to be in. I'll say that.
Yeah, and as we're talking here, I'm seeing some of the UDFA signings, and we'll get to that in a bit. But yeah, I mean, he'll be depth. I don't know if we'll ever see too much of Rourke aside from, training camp, and who knows, like, if he'll even be cleared by then. But yeah, injuries throughout his career have been a concern. It's derailed him. There's some nice parts to his game, but it's nothing more than Kyle exercising, his freedom here and getting someone in the building that he likes.
So basically, he was like, Salah's made all the picks. I want a chance to make.
Rob, it's so funny because I feel like we felt the shift in momentum in this draft as soon as Kyle started making the picks again. I'm just saying.
Not all the questionable picks. People didn't like the Nick Martin pick, but the Kyle picks, I think, were the ones that people were questioning. So we finally got an offensive lineman in the draft. Connor Colby went from Iowa. And Jed York has been sort of tipping or hinting at the picks before all of them every time throughout the whole draft. Most of them have been terrible, but I got to give it up to him for this one, Steph. He tweeted, "No one has suggested O-line to me, but what the heck?" That's pretty good. I'm not going to lie.
Man, Jed York with his tweets was just screaming like main character energy. Like he wants to be involved so bad. He wants to be one of the boys and feel like he's part of this. So he could have these silly little tweets. But that one, yeah, I'll give him that one. It was good. I like having hints of the picks beforehand just because I like to know what's going to happen before it happens.
Oh, I don't. I like to know the announcement. I literally like to not find out anything until I hear the call at the podium, which it was so hard doing the draft shows because the chat gets it.
I know.
It's frustrating. But look, 49ers needed an offensive lineman. To be honest with you, I think they needed multiple. The thing I like about Connor Colby is that he's played at both guard spots and he's played at tackle in college. And by the way, he's freaking huge. 6'6", 310, versatility. I don't know what he is as a player, but I like, again, the vision. I see it. It makes sense.
Yeah, and John Lynch, speaking with the media, said the 49ers intended to target more offensive linemen, but they ended up drafting, just Connor Colby. And quote, "There were a number of times it just didn't align and we didn't want to force things." So that tells me like some of the guys that they probably liked went before them, and they didn't want to force things. And what we said, like they ended up making all of their picks. They didn't trade up or anything like that. Maybe that's something they intended to do going into day 3. Like, hey, we're going to make all these picks. We need all these guys. Let's just see who's on the board when we draft. So that's fine. I mean, they end up with Connor Colby, who, as you said, you know, he offers some versatility, which the 49ers obviously covet. I think Iowa is a pretty good system, especially from the run blocking standpoint. And so he comes in as a good run blocker already. He could improve in his pass protection, but you know that the 49ers covet run blocking more so than pass blocking. So I'm okay with that. It definitely fits the 49ers. So yeah, I think this is a good choice that late in the draft.
The Niners have a view of the offensive line that is just different from our view. They keep telling us over and over again, they don't view it as much of a problem as we view it as. And this is clear that they, you know, I know they said they wanted to, but they didn't. But if it was a priority, they would have addressed it, right? The defensive line and the run defense was a priority. Clearly, they addressed it. So they didn't see it as high on their list of needs as the rest of us see it. I'm not saying they're right or wrong, by the way. I'm just, if you're looking for how everyone's saying, oh my God, how could they do this? This is how, because they don't see it the way we see it. And for better or worse, we'll find out ultimately what ends up happening. And I don't know, Steph, if you've seen some of the UDFA signings, have they signed offensive linemen that you've seen so far?
Not yet. The only undrafted free agent signing I've seen so far is running back Kiner from Cincinnati. And he's one who's had a lot of prior connections to the 49ers. He was on the draft sheet. The 49ers, one of their assistant coaches, Miguel Revelez, was coaching running backs at the Shrine Bowl, and Kiner was one of those running backs. So they've gotten a lot of, hands-on work with him, and that made a lot of sense. I actually did expect that he would probably sign as a UDFA if he made it as a UDFA. So yeah, that's the first signing that we know of so far.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on that. And look, we've seen some of these UDFAs contribute for the 49ers, so it's definitely something to keep an eye on. I don't want to forget the last pick the 49ers made, wide receiver Junior Bergen, another wide receiver pick. I don't know anything about him, Steph, but I did see this tweet, so I wanted to throw it up on the screen because, I'm trying to give people information here. This comes from Ryan Fowler, who says, Niner fans are going to love Montana wide receiver punt returner Junior Bergen, historic return man at the FCS level with 8 touchdowns in his career, who can fly, 16.7 yards per return, ranked 3rd in Big Sky history, right behind Cooper Kupp. The NFL is trying to make the kick return a play. They move the touchback line again. They want kick returns. So if he can do that, good, because damn it, it's been too long since we had a kick return. I'm old enough to remember when Ted Ginn did it, and Richie James had one, I think, for the 49ers years ago, and we haven't had any since. So if that's all he does, damn it, I'm here for it.
Yeah, and apparently he had a private workout with the 49ers just a couple of weeks ago. So there had been some interest there. I like you had not seen him, watched him yet, so can't speak too much to him. But obviously for these late round picks, talking about upside, right? The ability to be a return man is definitely something that I think will help him stay on this roster and find a role, or at least, he find himself some value on the roster. So yeah, I'm open to it. I'll definitely try to watch some of him after this. And, it's the 7th round. It's the last pick in the 7th round. Mm-hmm. Realistically, a lot of these guys don't end up making the roster all too long. If they do, it's on the practice squad. So we'll see what comes of these guys, especially on the offensive side. Like the offensive side, they didn't have a lot of holes to fill. So I think those guys will have a less of an opportunity to make this roster. But defense was what they needed to address, and they definitely did.
Jed York also had a nice thank you tweet at the end of the draft, which, it's nice to see. Said, thanks to our scouts, coaches, and staff for all their hard work leading up to this draft. Always a fun time to see the athletes realize their dreams and become a pro. Congrats to all the new 49ers. Did you see, I think it was Upton Stout on his draft call when the Niners called him, he said, let's go, I'm ready. And he called everybody on the phone coach. He called John Lynch coach, he called Kyle coach, and then Jed had the ball, and he called him coach too.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's always silly when players do that. I don't think they really know who's on the other side. They just call everyone coach. But yeah, he was fired up, man. And wasn't he the one that kept saying, like, you got a dog, that yeah, I love the energy of some of these guys, and excited to see what they do on the field.
This is the biggest day of their professional life. I mean, maybe their whole life for some of them. Although I did notice, Steph, that a lot of the guys that the Niners have picked are already married. Like, multiple guys they picked are married. Some of them have kids already. And it's not like they picked a bunch of old guys either. But so maybe this is not like the most important day of their life, but it's up there. And I totally get the emotions.
Yeah. And I think the oldest, guy they brought in is Kurtis Rourke, who's going to be 25 in week 1 of the season. But aside from that, like, yeah, they got some young guys. Michael Williams, of course, only 20. But yeah, I think, maturity and character is something that they look for. It's not uncommon that they bring in guys who have been team captains for their teams. So, just bringing high character guys is something to look for, people who fit their culture, locker room. So yeah, on early looks and sounds of this draft, it seems like that's what they got.
What's your overall feeling now that the draft is complete? We obviously know the importance of what this draft needed to be. We understand what the Niners had roster-wise in terms of holes that they needed to fill. It's in the books. All 11 picks have been made. You feel blank about the 49ers now that the draft is over?
I feel like Robert Saleh's running shit. That's what I feel. And I love it. I mean, good for him, man. Like, for him to come back, I think, I don't know if it was said like, hey, if I come back, like, I want to be able to have full control over the defense. I want to have say over the type of players that I bring. And he did that. I mean, he has a clear vision, I think, for all of these guys. And you can say that a lot of the guys that they picked fill a specific role that had been missing for the 49ers for some time for some of these guys. Like, I was talking with KP yesterday. We did a recap of day 2, and, we got to talking about Michael Williams. And Michael Williams, you'll hear the name Arik Armstead, and not from the player body, profile standpoint, right, from the role standpoint. That's exactly what we talked about. Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were on KNBR after day 1, and they brought up Arik Armstead too, and Michael Williams, because that's the role that they were missing. A guy who has the outside and inside versatility. Michael Williams can beat guards, and that he's a good run defender. So you can have him play outside and set the edge on those base downs, and then move him inside where he's going to have advantageous matchups and one-on-ones against guards on passing downs. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of the vision for Michael. I think for Alfred Collins, maybe they see like Hargrave, CJ West, like, guess Chris Kosarick did in fact compare him to DJ Jones, which is no surprise. Like we said, that's a big comp for him. And so Nick Martin, some fans say they see Dre Greenlaw. I think those are big shoes to fill. He's not going to be Dre Greenlaw, but, just the skill set, some of the things that they have to offer, you see some of that. Upton Stout, a lot of people say K'Wan Williams, right? even Kyle and Lynch, when they were asked about if they see K'Wan Williams and Upton Stout, they at the same time said yes. So
yes, yep.
So I think that tells you, like, they're looking for a specific role. It's not so much like we want to find the clone of this player, but I think they're looking for things that were missing on this defense that Robert Saleh had and knows that it works. Like, we can credit Saleh for building this defense pretty much almost from the ground up in 2025. And I think he's like, when he gets another opportunity to be a head coach, he's going to be better for it. In fact, this is good for his overall resume, because teams are going to see the draft if it ends up panning out and going all as planned. Team's going to be very impressed, and he can point to this draft and be like, I did that, right? So good for Robert Saleh, good for the 49ers to, give him that control over the defense. he did a hell of a job from what I could tell. Early returns, right? Like we'll wait to see what it looks like on the field on Sundays, but I feel really good about it so far.
Even if Robert Saleh is only here for a year, if the players that he helped pick work out, like we're going to benefit from that. Even though he might only be here 1 year, there will be a multi-year benefit from all these picks. Mr. J asks, best pick of the 49ers draft. I was high on Mykel Williams, but I feel like that's kind of a cop-out, taking the first pick as the best pick. So I think I'm going to go CJ West. I like him. I like the mentality. I like the role that he's going to have to play for this defense. I think he can come in right away and do the thing, right? Do the thing that he's good at and the thing that the team needs. They got him in the 4th round. You know, I like that, where they found him in the draft. So I'm going to go CJ West.
My favorite player in this class, even before, one of the favorite players that I watched even before he became a Niner, was Alfred Collins. Like, he was one of my favorite defensive tackles I watched. Just so much fun. And I think it's because he's able to shed blocks. He plays with an incredible amount of energy, the energy that you want to see, just like the tenacity that you want to see from defensive tackles. Like, they got to be nasty. They got to be willing. Alfred Collins is all of that and more. I'm very excited to see him in this defense, and I think he's going to eat in this defense.
Since you always like to talk about me and the history and all that stuff, Steph, do you know that this is not the first time that the 49ers have taken 5 defensive players with their first 5 picks?
I did not know that. I thought it was awesome that they did, because I'm not going to lie, I had a mock draft where I'm pretty sure I went 5 or 6 defensive players in the first rounds for them. I mean, I was hoping they would do something like that, right? Because it's their biggest need. And I'm glad that they didn't shy away from doing that and wanting to balance it out. Your team was already unbalanced by how many needs you had to fill on your defense. So I'm glad they just went ahead and knocked that out. And then at a certain point, you could tell they just kind of went with, guys that they liked and, maybe best player available on their board. So yeah, I'm a big fan of whatever strategy they had in this one.
I joked about how, like after a while you do mock drafts and you're kind of just messing around like, oh, all defensive line, all offensive line. Well, the Niners just went with their all defense mock draft. But in 1981, they did go defensive player with their first 5 picks. Their first defensive player picked was Ronnie Lott. He ended up being pretty good. They also got Eric Wright, Lynn Thomas, Carlton Williamson. So some key contributors back in the day in 1981. Just crazy how like history is repeating itself a little bit. Everyone in the chat is furious about the offensive line situation. I don't think it's as bad as most people think. I agree that they need to improve there, but I don't think the offensive line, like that's not the reason they went 6-11 last year, was not the offensive line. So I get that we want to improve there, but if Trent's playing this year, they can hopefully skate by another year. And then they are going to have to address it next offseason. I agree, because Trent might not be there and things will change. But like, I can't look at this draft class and be like, oh, it was a terrible class because they didn't take enough offensive linemen. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, I think I'm fine with that. I think it wasn't for lack of trying. Like, I think what Lynch said is probably accurate. There were probably guys that they would have drafted earlier. They went off the board. So you got to wait for the next guy that you like to be in that range, right? And who knows how many times that happened. Rob, like maybe it was 2 or 3 times where there was a guy they liked that got picked up right before. There was like, look, that like the from going to the 5th round to the 7th was kind of rough, because that was a spot where I saw a lot of guys go that I would have liked the 49ers to get. Another reason why I was a little surprised that the 49ers didn't move up with one of their 3 7s, right? But I think their plan was to just see who's going to be there, get as many bites of the apple as they can get. And they did that. So, and they still ended up with an offensive lineman who fits exactly what they look for, which isn't like the sexy pick offensive lineman. They look for guys who could play a lot of different spots, who can start off as depth pieces, who they can develop in the background for a couple of years, right? So I think Connor Colby provides that for them. And who's to say that they can't add, some of these undrafted free agents as well. I'm trying to see, like, as I'm talking here, did Logan Brown ever end up getting drafted? Because he was one that I liked, and I'm not sure if he ended up signing with anyone. I guess I'll have to look it up. But like, there's some good options that I think are out there for the 49ers. And if honestly, if the 49ers had drafted Logan Brown,
he's out there.
He's still out there. Yes. So if he was drafted on day 3, we would have all been ecstatic. If the 49ers could get him as a UDFA, what's that going to do for all these people that were complaining that they didn't get one, right? Just pretend if they do sign him as a UDFA, or if they do sign someone else who looks like a steal now, maybe just pretend that they got him early in day 3. Would that make you feel better?
James Thomas says close to half our starters for this season could be coming from the last 2 drafts. I'm excited about this retooling. That's the way it has to be. I do have a galaxy brain take about the offensive line. I want to know what you know about this, because you tend to disagree with most things I say. So I feel like if I can get you to agree on this one, then I feel like I'm onto something. But Chris Forrester talked about how it's really hard to scout offensive linemen in college because there's not a lot of college teams that run and do the things in the run game that the 49ers do. So a lot of the times it's like you're going on very limited snaps and you're like, oh, that's what we do. Oh, he did pretty good there, but he only did it a few times. So it's hard to kind of predict how that'll go in the NFL. I almost wonder if that is the case and that we take him at his word, is it almost better for the 49ers to kind of do their offensive line scouting in the NFL, kind of how they've done, right? Where they brought Ben Barch and they brought in guys later in the year that they've seen do what they do in the NFL, because the 49ers system is so widespread throughout the league that's almost like, well, now we get to see that against NFL competition, teams running the stuff we actually run, and then we can evaluate and maybe we pick offensive linemen off practice squads or make trades and do it that way.
Rob, I think that's exactly why they do it that way. And again, like, even when they sign some of these guys, they're not the sexy, like, offensive linemen. Like, they're guys that are depth pieces for whatever team they got them from, right? But what they see is guys who fit their scheme, guys who fit their profile, and guys who they think they can develop or have upside to fill in, as a starter if they need to, spot duty if they need to. Those are the guys they look for, and it has worked out for them at times. Like, there has been some guys they've brought in and we're like, who? And they end up being fine when they get in there. It hasn't always worked out, but sometimes it does. So I think it's a fine. It's fine for them to do that. I think for them, they're more comfortable doing that. Center is a position that they will not, like, if they draft it, they're not going to start that center right away. Like, That is one position it has to be a veteran, because they're just more comfortable with that. There's so much responsibility that the center in this scheme has to be responsible for, right? So I think they're more comfortable with getting guys who are veterans, who have been in the NFL, and that they've seen NFL film on. So, and before we move on to another topic here or whatever, Colorado State guard Drew Moss is signing with the 49ers as a UDFA. So I just looked up his name as we're talking here on Dane Brugler's draft guide. He's center 13 on the Beast. So he's got some center. He's played some right tackle, right guard. Usually guys who've played right tackle in college, a good portion of them, certainly if they're UDFAs, will probably be an interior offensive lineman. And again, he's marked as a center here on the draft guide. So there you go. The 49ers are bringing in some guys for their offensive line.
A no-star recruit. That's not a good thing you want to see, but I agree. Look, I agree with John Lynch. Like, you shouldn't force it just to force it. Clearly, they're recognizing that they should get some reinforcements along the offensive line. They drafted one. They've already added another. Says Moss is an efficient mover with an assignment sound mindset to understand his responsibilities. He has a smooth muscled body with shorter arms that can be troubled by point of attack power. He was flagged 17 times in 2 seasons at Colorado State. That's not encouraging. But when his technique stays on schedule and he doesn't get overextended, he can show off his finishing grit. Overall, Moss might be a center-only option because of his measurables, but he has the tools and intangibles to develop into a potential reserve. So, hey, it's something, right? Like,
That's what I'm saying. Like,
yeah,
it's fine.
I agree that I don't think that their offensive line, like, it's not like they had the worst offensive line in the league. I think that people think that Brock Purdy will never get hit and never get injured if you just have a good offensive line. And it's like, no, it doesn't always work that way, even though we'd like to think that, because it's scary to think about your quarterback getting hurt because he's gotten hurt in 2 of his 3 years as a starter. But that's just not how it works.
Would I love it if the 49ers had a different philosophy for offensive line? Yes, like absolutely. But also they've shown us who they are. So like I'm not expecting anything else anymore. And I think I've just gotten used to the way that they do stuff. And, you know, to your point, Rob, it hasn't been as bad as some people think. I think I would like to see an improvement from the center position. That's not always an easy fix. Hey, Rob, do you think that the 49ers are going to maybe look to make a trade for anything that they maybe feel they didn't address as much in this draft? I know Matt Maiocco definitely thought, you know, they would definitely make a trade after the draft. He said even during, but we didn't see a lot of player trades. I think the only one we saw was Sam Howell getting traded to the Vikings, right? So, but now I think with teams picking up all these players, some teams are going to be willing to trade some guys on their roster that maybe are, you know, they have too many of one position. So yeah, the 49ers are in a position where if they feel like they need that position, they can go after it, right? So maybe we see that with offensive line. Maybe we see that with the center. I don't know, but I wouldn't be shocked if that's something that they do.
Yeah, I was really surprised to hear Matt Maiocco say, like, he said, like, he expects it to happen, like that they're trade for a veteran guy, and they could still do that. Look, there's, you know, maybe teams had potential things in place, and they said, you know, as long as we get XYZ in the draft, then we'll do the trade or whatever. That could happen. And also remember, there's only one cut down day now. And so a lot of times you see some trades for like late round picks because it's a guy a team's going to cut anyway. And so they just make a trade. And so maybe it happens then for the 49ers. But I think it's definitely possible. Jonathan Marsh, thanks for the super chat, says off topic, but nice hat, Rob. Where'd you get it? I actually got this at Levi's, believe it or not. When the day I met you, Steph, at that Cowboys game. I bought this hat at Levi's Stadium. I bought one for me and one for my son. So that's where it comes from. This was what they wore on the sidelines, I think, that year.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Cool hat.
It reminds me, there was a hat like this back in the 90s. They had a similar style hat like this back in it was a shark tooth hat, but it was almost like this. So yeah, that's where I got the hat. Did you see the jersey news, Steph?
What is the news? Like, did it actually come out?
So I haven't seen a picture of it. And if anyone in the chat has seen a picture, please send it because I'm obsessed with jerseys and logos and all that stuff. But we were right. The Niners changed their Twitter avatar for a reason. Nike's doing this thing called rivalries this year.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. Yep.
During the rivalry games, they're going to have different jerseys and maybe different helmets. So I'm really excited to see what the Niners come out with. It looks like it's going to be an SF somewhere with no oval, which I fully support. I think that's going to be cool. But if anybody has seen it, please let me know.
Yeah, I love the graphics, and if the graphics are anything close to what the uniform might look like, and again, like think of City Connect, like what the NBA and also the MLB is doing. I like that. I like a San Francisco inspired type of jersey. And I love the idea of just having different jerseys and alternates because as a fan, I like to have different things and things that not as many people are going to have, or I don't know. It's nice to have something different. So whatever it is, I'm very excited and looking forward to buying a jersey of whatever the design is.
Yes. Little alternate could be very, very good. I'm trying to just do one last check to see if the Niners got any other UDFAs. I don't think so, but obviously those will come in. Shiloh Sanders, I think, signed with the Bucks. I know that was a whole thing. I was a little nervous, Steph, as it got later and later. Like, could Shador end up on the 49ers? I was glad that they avoided the circus.
You know why? It's because Peter Scraggs brought that up, and I thought it was a horrible idea to begin with. The 49ers just have, in my opinion, too many other needs to allocate. But at a certain point, it was like, he's not this bad. Like, I know he was overrated, and certainly first round talk was maybe a little much, but like, man, day 3, and where'd he go? Like 5th round, right, or something like that. So
Yeah, to Cleveland.
So I'm like, this is bizarre. It was truly bizarre. But I'm okay with the 49ers not doing that.
Yes, absolutely. And good luck to him in Cleveland. It's funny because Dion had a tweet about how specifically if he was a young quarterback, he would not want to play in Cleveland, which of course is hilarious. Their whole quarterback room is hilarious, as Brisbee Life on Twitch points out. Shout out to the Twitch fam. So that is it. The NFL draft is in the books for 2025. We'll have plenty of breakdown here on the Gold Standard Podcast Network, and I'm sure you will on your channel as well, Steph. But it's in the books now. It's done. We can sink our teeth into these guys, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, everybody that watched over the past 3 days, and thank you, Steph, for all the time you gave us on the channel. We greatly appreciate your knowledge and your expertise. We bow to it. Matt Barrows was bowing to it as well on your channel, so thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This has been a really fun draft. Is the fact that the 49ers didn't make the playoffs, while that sucked, like it allowed me to get into the draft a hell of a lot earlier. And so I was locked in, man. And I was so happy that a lot of the 49ers picks I had already watched prior, and they didn't have too many surprises. So that was nice as well. It's been a lot of fun covering the draft with you on my channel as well. And thanks for having me.
One last question for you before we go. Way too early prediction. The 49ers picked 11th overall in 2025. In 2026, are you going over or under 11 for the Niners draft pick in the first round?
Over, as in they will not be picking that early.
I hope you're right. Guys, as much fun as the draft process was when you're picking that high, like I don't want to see it again.
What's crazy, Rob, is that it seems very much attainable for this team to be so much better than they were last year. Just the easy schedule, the offense is pretty much the same. The offense last year wasn't even like the biggest issue on this team. Like, we know that. The defense is going to be so much better. The run defense is going to be so much better. You're not going to be able to run on this team. So again, like the high floor. This defense has a really high floor at this point. I feel so great with Robert Saleh being back at the helm there. They're going to be a lot better, I'm expecting, this year.
Sign Brock Purdy, sign George Kittle, who, by the way, was back in the building. So,
Yes.
Clearly is not too mad. He was actually greeting draft picks that were there. Get those two things done, and we head into 2025 with the vibes high. Immaculate vibes, one would say.
Yeah, exactly. I like how the messaging around Kittle being back is, expect the deal to get done now that he's back. It's almost like they're trying to get the word out that, hey, if you just report, we'll get this deal done so much quicker. It's always all on the player, to be the bigger man in these negotiations. But yeah, as long as this deal gets done and soon, both of these deals, I'll be happy.
Announce them on the same day, damn it. By the way, did you see the Kittle little commercial he did with Red Guardian from the Marvel Cinematic Universe? It was hilarious.
I did not.
Oh, well, it's on his Instagram if you want to go and check that out. But anyway, good job in the draft, 49ers. Let's get these guys signed, and we head into 2025 feeling very, very good. Enjoy the rest of your night and your weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Peace.